Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. May all be happy. May all be free from disease. May all see only goodness everywhere. May no one suffer from any misery. May there be peace everywhere by the grace of God. Okay. Now that I have said the prayer, I should announce to you the subject of my talk this evening. The subject is what happens after death. And death is inevitable. Every living being, including the human beings, will have to die sooner or later. And so naturally, in the minds of our primitive ancestors, the thought was there, or the question was there. Where do people go after their death? Are they lost forever? We shall see that in some different ancient cultures, there are different ideas also about what happens to us after we die. Anyway, so the primitive ancestors of human beings, they thought that the earth was like a large disc, round disc, because when they would go to the top of a hill, then from there they could see the horizon, round horizon. And beyond the horizon, or close beyond this earth, there used to be, in some places there used to be water, but they all thought that the earth was a round disc, flat disc, more or less. And when those primitive ancestors of ours, when they would fall asleep, they all would have dreams. And it is strange that in their dreams they would see sometimes people who had died. And they would interact with those people. They seemed to be alive and well in the dream world. But when they would wake up, they would look for those people, but they could not find them. Then they wondered, where have they gone? Why do they come when we fall asleep only at that time? And when we are awake, we don't see them. And some of them might have seen a high-flying bird, such as an eagle, flying higher and higher and higher and becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. And eventually when it flies to a great height, it becomes invisible. That's why they thought that there may be a world up there which is invisible to our naked eyes because it is high up somewhere. And they call that world heaven. They thought that the departed soul, those who had died, they would go to that world at that time. That's why they could not be seen. And then again, another thought came, because not all dead people were good people. Some are not that good. So they thought, where do they go? Do they also go there, up there? Then some of them thought, no, they must suffer for their bad behavior while living on earth. So they must have gone elsewhere. Where? Underground. And they thought that underground there is a hollow space which is dark, unpleasant, and they called it hell. And these people, bad people, would go to hell, and good people would go up there, which is heaven. Then they had already had some ideas about the deities or God, whatever idea that might have been. And in heaven God was there. In hell, no, there was no God. That's what they thought. So then time passed, and as time passed, more and more people started thinking of what happens after death. And there are some countries where food was abundant, such as India, and the climate was warm and comfortable, not very cold. So there some people, they could get food from the abundant crops they had there, are fruits and trees which are there. And so they had some time to lie and rest. And when they would lie down and rest, then they would be able to think. And I think some of them would think of what happens after death. And it is interesting, and in course of time, some of them with their highly evolved minds were able to know that the earth was not flat. It was spherical. There is a book in Hinduism, where ancient book, where this sentence is there. Karatala kalita amalakabad amalam vidanti ye gunam. It is in Sanskrit. Its meaning is this: earth is like a myrobalan fruit, spherical, and which is on my palm. That fruit is spherical. So also this earth where we are, that is spherical. When that idea came, the old ideas of heaven and hell disappeared. Then they understood that earth being spherical, which was hell and which was heaven. So they were probably confused, but they went on thinking, because human beings have the ability to think better than other subhuman beings. And so they went on thinking. And then some thinkers, that also in India, came to know one truth. And that is there in that book, holy book called Katha Upanishad. Sorry. In that Katha Upanishad, this sentence is there. Yadidam kincha jagat sarvam prana ejati nisritam. Whatever exists in this world, they are vibrating. They have come from the Creator, and they are vibrating and vibrating and vibrating all the time. That means this entire world is a vibrating place. at a certain frequency of vibration, this world, this earth is vibrating. And they also knew that there are many such worlds like this earth where the vibrations are different. How many? And each of those worlds is a plane of existence, and that such plane of existence they would call loka in Hinduism. So Hindu scriptures say that there are innumerable lokas, innumerable planes of existence, and each one has a different set of vibrations. That's why we are in this loka. This is called Bhurloka, this earth plane of existence. Here we can catch the vibrations, frequencies of vibrations of this world. But occupying the same space, there are many, many other worlds or planes of existence or called lokas with different frequencies of vibration, each one. So loka means a plane of existence, and there are innumerable lokas. That's what Hinduism teaches. Now let me remember one thing. There is another ancient culture which became defunct after a while. That is the Egyptian culture. Many thousand years ago, the Egyptians thought, they came to know about the spirit and the body, these two things. And they thought that the body is the home of the spirit. And the spirit could not exist without its home, which is the body. So when people would die, the spirit has left the body, but in order for the spirit to go on existing, they thought this body, which is the home of the spirit, should be retained. But the body left alone will start putrefying and it will be eventually lost. So to prevent that possibility, they developed the art of mummification of body, to keep the body or preserve the body. It took many years for them to learn to mummify a body, I think. And so when the bodies would be mummified, they would be there, so the spirit would be there. It should not be the spirit would not be homeless. But those bodies which would be destroyed, and their spirits will be homeless and they will be lost also. Now let me go back to Hindu thought. So according to Hindu thought, there are even innumerable planes of existence or loka. And so this earth is one of those lokas. It is called Bhurloka. According to Hinduism, the spirit of the soul goes to some other loka for which it has become suitable. The vibration of that soul will take that person to that particular loka. And according to Hinduism, there is an idea that there are 14 such lokas. And if we consider this Bhurloka or this earth plane of existence, then above it there are 6 other lokas, and below it there are 7 other lokas. So this earth plane is called Bhurloka. So above it, judging by the frequencies of vibration and judging by the pleasure and joy one gets if we go. So then according to that, as you go up you get more bliss or peace. And if you go down you don't get that much joy. The joy becomes reduced. So above the earth plane there is Bhuvarloka. Then above Bhuvarloka there is Swarloka. And above Swarloka there is Janaloka. Above Janaloka there is Maharloka. Above Maharloka there is Tapoloka. And above Tapoloka there is Satyaloka. Their bliss is endless. Satyaloka. And if you go down, then under this earth plane there is this Atala Loka, then under that there is Vitala Loka, then there is Sutala Loka, then Rasatala Loka, then Talatala Loka, then Mahatala Loka, and then Patala Loka. It is the lowest. So the spirits, departed souls, go to one or the other lokas, depending upon the frequency of vibration of that soul. And the Chandogya Upanishad says that when the soul departs from the body, and the soul is not the body, Hinduism clearly expresses that. It is not the body. As the Egyptians used to think that it was the body and soul, they are interconnected, and if one doesn't exist, the other also will not exist. No, that idea is not there. So the body is composed of 2 parts. One is called the Sukshma Sharira, finer body, and the other was gross, Sthula Sharira, this is gross body. The gross body is made of muscles, bones and all those things. And when a person dies, this gross body is left behind. But the subtle body goes on existing. The subtle body resembles this body. And depending upon the quality of the mind of the departed, this subtle body may look much, much better. And so this Chandogya Upanishad speaks of 8 levels. From the earth plane one goes to Archi, because that is the route which is followed by the departing spirit. First is Archi, then Divyaloka, then Shukla Paksha Loka, then Shanmasha Uttarayana Loka, then Samvatsara Loka, then Aditya Loka, then Chandrama Loka, then Vidyut Loka. That is the highest. And in Vidyut Loka, one superhuman soul helps the departed souls to experience God. And God is bliss itself. Satchit Anandam, God is Anandam. So when one experiences that, then that person has found limitless, infinite bliss. So in Hinduism, they think that the goal of all souls is divinity. And now I will tell you certain interesting things. Sorry. There was a saint named Krishna Goswami. He was a contemporary of Sri Ramakrishna, who is a divine incarnation. Krishna Goswami belonged to another religious group called the Brahma Samaj. Then he became a leader of that. But he was born in a very virtuous family and eventually returned to the ancient Hindu tradition. Anyway, and he was saintly. And he acquired the ability to see the finer worlds. So once he went to see an elderly lady whom he knew, who was in her deathbed. That lady was also very virtuous. She had become old, so all signs of old age were visible on her body and face, as she was in her deathbed. So that's why Krishna Goswami went to see her. And then he saw something strange happening. Over the lady's body, another body, as though some invisible person was creating another body, similar to this body of this old lady. And these two bodies, the body which was above, it was connected to the living body with sort of something like a thread of light, a rope of light. They are connected. And then the upper body, the construction of that became complete, and that rope was snapped, it was gone. And the upper body became alive, and the lower body becomes dead. And Krishna Goswami saw that the upper body of that elderly lady was radiant. Light was coming out of her body. And she looked so beautiful. And then another soul from somewhere came with a similar body, radiant body, to receive her. So she was to go to a high plane of existence because of our spiritual progress. Her mind had progressed a lot. And from that plane of existence, where she would go, she was fit to go, came the other person. And the other person came and as a guide took her there. So this is one incident. And another time, Krishna Goswami had to go and see a young man who was newly married, but he was in his deathbed. He had to go there for some reason. And there he saw a similar sight. Above the body of that young man, as though some invisible maker was making a body similar to the body which was lying in bed. And that these two bodies were connected by also something like a rope of light. But the body which was floating above, that body was not as bright and as luminous as the body of that elderly lady whom Krishna Goswami had seen. It was a dull-colored body, dull-colored body. And then the connecting link, that light of rope was snapped, and the young man died, and the upper body became alive. But it was a dark colored body. And the young man, another soul came to take him to the plane for which he was ready, I think, that young man. And that person also looked dark, and similar to this young man. But the young man did not want to go with him. He didn't know that he had died. So the other person who had come to become his guide to the plane of existence where the young man was fit to go, that person left. And the young man went to the other room where his wife was there. She was crying, thinking that her husband had died. But this young man went to her and said, "Why are you crying? Look at me, I am alive." Yes, the young man didn't even know that he had died. "I am alive." Then his wife was not able to listen to him. Then the young man with great mental force started telling, "I am alive, I am alive." And then suddenly that lady saw this young man's spirit. And when she saw that, she got scared and said, "Oh, a ghost has come, a ghost has come." And she ran out of that room. She could not recognize that it was the subtle body of her husband. And the young man became very depressed. He didn't know where to go. Then he walked away and went somewhere. That's what Vijaya Krishna Goswami saw. So the young man did not go to that plane of existence for which mentally he was fit. He had still great attraction for this world. And anyway, then I should tell you something. When I was a young man in my 20s, then I got to know a person who was a good medium, and his aunt was a person who could bring departed souls. Through what you may call planchet or something. And the departed soul would come and would start writing the questions if they would be asked, that answer those questions. And that aunt was a professor in a college in Uttar Pradesh in India. She had never married, but she was an expert in that area. Departed souls can be requested to come down to our plane of existence. There is mention of that in our tradition, Hindu tradition. Even Sri Ramakrishna would say that he had seen some such case where a departed soul would come and answer questions and all these things. And that is a departed soul which would come would be called a chanda. They used to say, so the chanda would come and would answer questions. So my friend eventually became a good medium. Some spirits would come through him and would write, etc. So one day I went there and we thought that My father had died a few years before that, so I thought that, yes, let us request my father's spirit to come. And before that, we requested another person who was a very good friend of ours and a distant relative who was a doctor, homeopathic doctor. He died, and his death was caused by, I think, cancer in his intestine or something. So before his death, he could not eat anything, only little water could be given to him. And at that time, I had to go to see him frequently, and I could give him some nursing care also. But he had sons, 3 sons and daughters-in-law also living in that house. Anyway, he died. And then first, my friend and I decided to bring the soul of that relative of mine who was a doctor, homeopathic doctor. And his spirit came and started answering questions. Then I asked him, whom do you miss most? And he said, I miss you most. I said, what about your own sons and daughters-in-law? He said, no, they think I am a ghost. I love you most. He said. Then he was saying, I would like to eat, I would like to eat. Again and again he went on writing. Then I said, how will you eat? Then he said, let some food be given to me and I will take the subtle parts of that food. That's what he said. And he also answered some questions. His daughter was to be married to a friend of ours. They said, what about his, and he had decided that his daughter should be married to that young man. But he said, what is your opinion about her? Then he said, oh, I don't know. Most of the questions I asked, the answer was, I don't know. Then my father's departed soul was requested to come. And then what a difference. See, I asked my father's soul, you have come here, why? Then he said, I have come here because you are here and I am fond of you. Then I said, the place where you are, what kind of place is that? Then he said, there everything is made of light. Everything is made of light there. That means he was at a very high plane of existence. Then I asked him, at that time I had joined the audit department and I was being trained as an auditor. And I said, are you happy that I am in the audit department and being trained as an auditor? Then he said, no. I said, why not? Then he said, because you are meant to be a monk. He said, I'm meant to be a monk. Then I named 2 or 3 of my friends. I say, are they also meant to be monks? They said, no, they are not. Then I named someone who always said that he would become a monk. I said, what about him? Then he said, he cannot become a monk. And if he becomes a monk, then I am not your father, he said. And it's true. And I asked many other questions. And not 1 or 2. At least maybe 50 or 60 questions. And he gave answers to all of them. And it was strange that all answers proved to be true later on. Every answer. And I have also become a monk somehow. So I said, why are you happy that I become a monk? They said, being a monk is the best thing in the world. That's what he said. And he He predicted certain things and every prediction came true. That is strange. I know many other stories, but my time is up, it looks like I have to stop. That is, liberated souls, I have told you, they go to Satyaloka or Brahmaloka. That is Satyaloka or Brahmaloka. That is the highest loka. There is unending peace there. I wonder if my father had gone to such a loka. And that Satyaloka or Brahmaloka is also called by our devotees of the Ramakrishna Order, Ramakrishna Loka. And those are Christians, for them that will be Christ Loka, because there they will have the experience of divinity. Yes. So, this is what is said in Hinduism. And what is said is true. It has been proved through reliable testimony. Reliable testimony, not unreliable. That I was born on such and such a day. Whose testimony would be most reliable? My mother's testimony. When our monastic order decided to send me to the United States to serve the children of God here, then I needed a visa. When I went to the visa office in Calcutta, because I was in the headquarters at that time in Bilur Math, and that is very near Calcutta. So we went there. And they said that we want to have your age certificate. Then I told him what my age was. They would not accept that. He said, no, we want a certificate. I said I was born at home and I have no age certificate. But in any case, then said, if your mother certifies your age, then that we shall accept. Then my mother was living in Banaras, holy city, and then I requested her to give me a certificate that she was able to invite a magistrate, and in the presence of the magistrate, my mother told me what my age was and when I was born, and the magistrate signed that as a witness and sent to us. And then the American embassy accepted my age, and then I was given my visa. So, reliable testimony. That I talked about this path which is called Devajana, according to which one goes from Archi, Diva, Shukla, Paksha, Shanmasa, Uttarayana, Samvatsara, Aditya, Chandrama, Vidyut, and so on, those lokas. How do you know all these things? Because this is the reliable testimony of some sages who had experienced divinity. The same is true for the other lokas which I mentioned. But then again it is also said that there are innumerable lokas. And thank you all for your patience. Okay.